والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين مدد يا مصطفى مدد يا سادة مدد يا مشرف الدستور. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أعظم الناس أجرا في الصلاة أبعدهم إليها ممشى فأبعدهم والذي ينتظر الصلاة حتى يصليها مع الإمام أعظم أجرا من الذي يصليها ثم ينام. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki namaz hususunda insanın en fazla sevap kazananı derecelerine göre namaza uzak yerden yürüyerek gelendir.
Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that the one who obtains the most of the rewards of attending prayer is the one who makes the most steps and comes from far away to the masjid.
Yani en fazla namaz faziletlidir.
There are certainly blessings in performing one's prayers.
Cemaatle kılmak da faziletlidir.
And there are blessings in performing one's prayer in congregation at the masjid.
Gene de dereceler var.
And yet there are still stations of obtaining even greater rewards.
En fazla sevap kazanan daha uzak yerden gelen camiye namaza ilk bu gelir.
And the one who comes from a place that is most distinct will be obtaining the greatest rewards based on the distance people walk in order to attend the prayer at the masjid. Accordingly, they will be rewarded with even greater rewards.
En fazla sevabı olan imam arkasında namaz kılmak için bekleyen kişi. Onu da gelip erkenden imamla beraber kılmak için o namazı bekleyen kişi ikinci gelir.
And then after that comes the person who comes early in order and takes his place right behind the imam and waits for the prayer to begin right behind the imam.
Namazı kılıp uyuyan kişi kimseden daha çok sevap kazanır. Yani hem o evinde olup değil de imamla beraber namazı bekleyip ondan sonra onunla kılıp namazı kılıp da uyuyan kişiden daha çok sevap kazanır bunlar.
So those who come from further away, who travel the greatest distance, will be obtaining the greatest rewards. Then those who come early and take their place right behind the imam and wait for the prayer to begin will come next in their rewards, and they will be obtaining more rewards than the person who stays at home and performs his prayer at home and goes to sleep right after prayer.
قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الأبعد فالأبعد من المسجد Mescidden en uzak yerden gelen en fazla sevap kazanandır. Yani ne kadar uzak hem daha uzak diyor Peygamber Efendimiz gelen onlar daha sevabı ecri fazladır.
Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, says that the further you travel in order to attend the prayer at the masjid, the more you will be obtaining rewards.
Çoktur. Başkasından daha çoktur. Kâle Resulullah sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem beşşeril meşşâin fi'd-dulam ila'l mesâcid bin-nûr tâm yevmel kıyâmeh. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki karanlıklarda mescitlere yürüyenleri kıyamet gününde kavuşacağı tam bir nurla müjdele.
And our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, says that let there be glad tidings to those who go to the masjid in darkness in order to attend prayer at the masjid. And those who go to the masjid in darkness, let there be glad tidings to them that they will be endowed with divine light on the day of judgment.
Yani karanlık geceleyin, yatsı, akşam, sabah namazına mescitlere karanlıkta girenlerin kıyamet günü nurlan müjdeliyor Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem.
Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, declares glad tidings to those who attend Maghrib, Isha, Fajr prayer at the masjid, those who go to the masjid in the darkness, and they will be the ones who will be rewarded with and covered with the divine light on the day of judgment.
قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ثلاثة في ضمان الله عز وجل رجل خرج إلى مسجد من مساجد الله عز وجل ورجل Yüce Allah'ın mescitlerine birine gidip birine çıkıp giden yani namazı evde değil de mescitlere giden o Allah'ın garantisi, onun sevabı Allah indinde mahfuzdur.
Those who perform their prayers at the masjid, those who do not just stay at home to perform the masjid but go to the masjid in order to perform their prayers, they will be under the protection and under the assurance of Allah Almighty.
Biri Allah yolunda savaşa çıkan, o da savaşa Allah yolunda cihat için çıkan, o da Allah'ın garantisi altında.
And also those who go to fight for the sake of Allah Almighty to make jihad will also be under the protection and under the assurance and safeguard of Allah Almighty.
Diğeri de hac için yola çıkandır. Hacca çıkan insan da Allah Azze ve Celle'nin garantisindedir.
And also those who travel to make their pilgrimage Hajj, those who do their Hajj will also be under the protection and safeguard and assurance of Allah Almighty.
قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إسباغ الوضوء في المكاره وإعمال الأقدام إلى المساجد وانتظار الصلاة بعد الصلاة يغسل الخطايا غسلا. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki zorluk zamanlarında abdest almak ya soğukta zoruna giden şeyler abdesti onu tam yapmak.
Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, speaks about the importance of performing wudu despite difficult situations or despite coldness, for example.
O birinci şey. Çünkü bazen soğukta insan yarı buçuk abdest alır, ya bütün azalarını yapmaz.
Because sometimes if it's cold and the water is cold, people may not perform their ablution fully and they may only partially wash their organs.
Ya herhangi bir doğu zor olur. Onları zorluk vaktin zamanında abdest almak gelince.
Or there may be other situations or circumstances where it may be difficult to perform one's ablution.
Mescitlere gitmek için yürümek ve namazı kıldıktan sonra mescitte diğer namazı beklemek.
But those who perform their ablutions despite all difficulties, moreover those who go to the masjid to perform their prayer at the masjid in congregation, and thirdly those who go to the masjid perform their prayers and after having performed their prayers stay vigilant and wait for the next prayer.
Günahları tamamen yıkayıp temizler.
Their sins will be completely washed away.
Yani bunlar ne kadar insanın günahlar, hatalar varsa onları Allah affeder.
Those three groups, no matter how many sins they may have, Allah Almighty will cleanse them and wash their sins away.
Hataları da hatasız kabul eder. Temiz olarak kabul olunur bu ibadetler.
And Allah Almighty will accept their worship without any flaws, and Allah Almighty will accept their worship in a pure and clean state.
İnsanoğlu tabii ne kadar yapsa da hatası oluyor.
Because we as humans, we are not flawless.
Günah hata oluyor.
And we may commit sins and errors.
Bunlar temizler, bir şey bırakmaz.
But if we follow these rules, Allah Almighty will accept our prayers and our worship in a pure state.
Yani bunların her birinden birisi bile olsa onlar da günahları temizler.
And you either do all three things, or even if you just do one of them, either whether it's making your ablution correctly, or attending prayer at the masjid, or waiting for the next prayer, if you do one of them, you will also belong to those whose worship will be accepted in a pure state and whose sins will be washed away.
قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ألا أدلكم على ما يمحو الله به الخطايا ويرفع به الدرجات إسباغ الوضوء على المكاره وكثرة الخطى إلى المساجد وانتظار الصلاة بعد الصلاة فذلكم الرباط فذلكم الرباط فذلكم الرباط. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki Yüce Allah sayesinde bu hataları silip derecelerinizi yükseltecek bir şeyden size haber vereyim mi diyor.
Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, asks, would you like me to tell you, for the sake and by the will of Allah Almighty, about something which is going to clean you and purify you from your sins?
Yani bu hem günahlar, hatalar varsa onlar siliyor, bir de dereceler yükseliyor. Onlar size haber vereyim mi diye buyuruyor.
And not only will this purify you from your mistakes and sins, but also increase your ranks. And would you like to hear what it is to make you be purified from your sins and your rank to be increased?
Sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem devam ediyor. Her türlü zorluklara rağmen abdest almak.
And our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, thereupon says is, he who performs his ablution despite all difficulties,
Abdestini tam almak, yarı buçuk değil de.
And who pays attention to correctly make one's ablution without leaving things out.
Zorluk olsa da o abdesti tam güzel almak diyor.
And who makes an effort to make his ablution in a beautiful way despite all difficulties.
Mescitlere namaz için giderken adımları çoğaltmak.
Second, those who increase their steps when going to the masjid.
Mescid daha fazlaysa yani yürüyerek gidin. Oraya her adımınıza fazla sevap yazılıyor.
So even if the masjid is far away, when you then walk to the masjid, you will be obtaining more and more rewards for every single step you take.
Ve bir namazdan daha diğer namaz vaktine girmek, gözetmektir. Yani,
and third, when you perform your prayer and then stay vigilant and wait for the next prayer to be performed.
Öteki namazı da kılayım diye o namazı beklemek. Bunlar hepsi sizin için Allah yolunda nöbet tutulan gibidir.
And to wait for the next prayer and all these three things, these are tantamount to standing guard, standing watch, and being vigilant for the sake of Allah Almighty.
Nöbet tutmak gibidir, nöbet tutmak gibidir. Yani ribat dediği düşmana karşı nöbet tutmaktır. En büyük sevap ondandır.
And our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, repeats this 3 times. And he says that whoever does this is like standing guard for the sake of Allah Almighty, as if he was standing guard in a war for the sake of Allah Almighty.
Allah insana kazandırmış olur. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ثلاث ما كنا فيه أظله الله تحت ظل عرشه يوم لا ظل إلا ظله الوضوء على المكاره والمشي إلى المساجد في الظلم وطعام الجائع. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki 3 şey vardır ki bunlar kimde bulursa Allah onu kendisinin gölgesinde başka gölge olmadığı günde arşın gölgesi altında gölgelendirir.
And there are 3 things which will become the means by which Allah Almighty will grant you shadow and protect you with His divine throne on the day where there will be no shadow, on the day of the judgment, where there will be no place to hide and where there will be no shadow. Allah Almighty will give protection and give shadow with His divine throne.
Yani kıyamet günü hiçbir ne ağaç var ne gölge var ne çadır var.
On the day of judgment there will be neither trees to hide under, there will be no trees to give shadow, there will be no place to hide, or there will be no place to seek refuge, there will be no tent.
Ancak Allah Azze ve Celle'nin arşı gölgesi var.
There will be everything barren ground, and there will only be the throne under which one can seek a shadow.
O da bu şey yapanlara nasip olur. Bunlar her türlü zorluklara rağmen en güzel şekilde abdest almak.
And that shadow and shelter under the throne of Allah Almighty on the day of judgment will be reserved to those who perform their ablution despite difficulties in a beautiful manner.
Abdestini güzel almak, karanlıkta mescide gitmek.
Those who go to the masjid in darkness,
Karanlık, hani akşam yatsı, sabah karanlıkta mescitlere gitmek.
in other words, those who attend the prayer at the masjid, go to the masjid for Maghrib, Isha or Fajr prayer.
Üçüncüsü de aç olanları doyurmaktır.
And third, who feed the hungry.
İnsanı doyurmaktır. Kâle Resulullah sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem keffâratul hatâya isbâgul vudu alel mekârih ve emâl akdâmel mesâcid ve intizâru salâtu ba'da salâh. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki günahların kefareti zorluklara rağmen en güzel bir şekilde abdest almak.
Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, says that if you want to make up for sins, then performing ablution, despite all difficulties, will make up for your sins.
Hani abdestini soğuksa, sıcaksa, yani soğukta en çok insan nasıl alacağını şaşırır.
So sometimes it's so cold and people have hard times in making ablution because of the coldness outside and the cold water.
Bazıları yeni moda çıkarmış. Allah'a şükür bizim burada yok o. Abdest ayağını yıkamamak, çorabın üstüne mesletmek. Mesle üstüne olur da çorap üstünde olmaz. Onun için.
And now there's also a new fashion. Luckily, this is something that is not does not exist here. That people have now started. Instead of washing their feet during ablution, they just do mess on their socks. You may do mess when you wear actually a mess, but you cannot just do mess on your socks without actually washing your feet.
Zor olan çıkarıp da abdestini doğru dürüst almak, o da zordur. Onun için bu günahların kefaretinden biridir bu.
And these are examples to demonstrate one's willingness to properly make one's ablution is, for example, when despite coldness one makes one's ablution, or when it's difficult one washes his feet.
Yürüyerek mescide gitmek, yürüyerek cami yakın var zaten çoğu zaman camiler yakın, uzak olsa daha da iyi olur, daha fazla sevap kazanmış olur.
And second, those who will be granted shelter under the divine throne on the day of judgment will be those who walk to the masjid.
Ve bir namazdan diğer namazın vaktini gözetmektir.
And third, those who, after having performed one prayer, wait for the next prayer and stay vigilant up until the next prayer.
İster camide göster, ister dışarıda, hani onun niyetine göre Allah günahlarımızı, hatalarımızı affeder.
And you may stay vigilant and wait for the next prayer by staying in the masjid or being outside. It depends on your awareness and consciousness and on your intention while you wait for the next prayer.
قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الغدو والرواح إلى المساجد من الجهاد في سبيل الله. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki sabah ve akşam vakitlerinde mescitlere gitmek Allah yolunda cihattan sayılır. Bu zamanda cihat edemiyoruz. Cihat yok, cihat edecek herkes sayılır. Bu cihat yolundan sayılır.
Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, says to attend prayer in congregation at the masjid during evening prayer or night prayer or morning prayer when it's still dark is considered as if one has fought in jihad. And this is the jihad we can fight these days because there is no institution these days to make jihad.
Mescitlere gitmek akşam sabah.
So this is the jihad we can make, is to go to the masjid nighttime and in the morning to attend prayers in congregation while it's still dark outside.
قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فضل الدار القريبة من المسجد على الدار الشاسعة كفضل الغازي على القاعد. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki mescide yakın olan evin uzak olan olana üstünlüğü Allah yolunda savaşan kişinin oturan kişiye olan üstünlüğü gibidir.
And our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, says that the home that is close to a masjid compared to a house that is further away is more blessed, like the one who fights during a jihad compared the one who just sits.
Yani camiye yakın olan daha evi camiye yakın olan onun fazileti daha fazla.
The one who lives close and nearby the masjid will be obtaining more rewards and blessings than the one who lives further away.
Oradaki Allah yolunda savaşan gazi gibi olur, ötekisi de oturan gibi.
And the one who lives nearby the masjid will be like a warrior fighting in jihad compared who lives further away, who will be like somebody just sitting and not participating.
Onun için camilerde, mescitlere yakın olmak iyidir.
Therefore, there is blessing to have a house or home that is close to a masjid.
Maalesef şimdiki bakıyoruz, koca yerler yapıyorlar, camiye ancak arabayla gidebilirsin.
Unfortunately, we now see that there are complexes of buildings, very large, however, which miss a masjid, and the only way to go to masjid is by driving by car.
O da güzel değil yani. Yeni yerler yapıyor, yeni şeyler yapıyorlar. Çok maalesef öyle oluyor.
There are new buildings, new housings being made, but they are far away from the masjid, unfortunately.
Onun faziletini bilmiyorlar. Yani yeni evde oturdular. Bizim için faziletlidir, iyidir. Halbuki camiye ne kadar yakın olursa o kadar daha faziletli olur.
They think it will be beneficial for them if they live in a new house, in a new building, but what is actually beneficial is living nearby a masjid.
قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كل خطوة يخطوها أحدكم إلى الصلاة يكتب له حسنة ويمحو عنه بها سيئة. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki sizden biri namaza giderken attığı her adımla kendisine bir sevap yazılır.
Whenever you go to the masjid, you walk to the masjid in order to attend prayer in congregation, now Allah Almighty will reward you for every single step you take.
Ve bir günah silinir.
And He Almighty will erase with every single step you take a sin.
Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki meşşuke ilel mescid ve ensirafeke ile ehlik fil ecr sevâun. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki mescide gitmen ve namazdan sonra mescitten eve dönmen sevap olarak eşittir. Hem giderken o sevabı kazanıyorsun hem gelirken.
And you will be obtaining the rewards of attending prayer in congregation at the masjid, not only when you walk to the masjid, but also when you walk back home after having performed the prayer from the masjid. Then you will be gaining the same rewards as if you were walking to the masjid to attend the prayer. It's just you will be receiving the rewards for going to the masjid and coming home back from the masjid after the prayer.
Allah Azze ve Celle kereminden, cömertliğinden her türlü imkan veriyor bize.
Allah Almighty gives us through His generosity all kinds of possibilities.
İnsanlar da hiç umurları değil.
To benefit from His blessings and His divine favors, but people are not interested at all.
قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ليس شيئا أحب إلى الله تعالى من قطرتين وأثرين قطرة دموع من خشية الله وقطرة دم تهراق في سبيل الله تعالى وأما الأثران فأثر في سبيل الله تعالى وأثر في فريضة من فرائض الله تعالى. Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem buyuruyor ki hiçbir şey Allah katında iki damladan daha ve iki izden daha sevimli değildir.
Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, says that there are no two drops which are more dear to Allah Almighty than those two drops, and there are two traces which are the dearest to Allah Almighty. There are no other traces than these two traces which are dear to Allah Almighty.
Yani Allah katında bunun en çok sevdiği şeylerdir bunlar.
And these are two things which are most which are dearest to Allah Almighty.
Biri Allah korkusuyla o akan bir damla gözyaşı diyor.
One type of that drop, which is most dear to Allah Almighty, is the drop is the tear that is shed for the sake of Allah Almighty.
Biri de Allah yolunda akıtılan bir damla kandır.
The other drop, which Allah Almighty loves the most than any other drop, is the drop of blood that is shed for the sake of Allah Almighty.
Bunlar Allah'ın indinde en sevdiği şeylerdir Allah Azze ve Celle'nin.
These are two things which Allah Almighty loves the most in His divine presence.
İzler ise biri Allah yolunda savaşırken alınan yara ve sakatlanma izi.
And the traces which Allah Almighty loves the most is the trace that one gets when fighting for the sake of Allah Almighty.
Biri de Allah farz kıldığı namaz ederken oluşan secde izidir.
And the other trace which Allah Almighty loves the most and loves more than anything else or any other trace is the trace that you get when you perform your obligatory prayers during the sajda.
Onlar da Allah katında en sevdiği şeylerdir.
These are, in the divine presence, the traces which are most loved by Allah Almighty.
Allah mübarek olsun.
May it be blessed for us all.
Sadaka Resulullah fîmâ kâl ev kemâ kâl. Ziyadet ila şerefin Nebi sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem ve âlihi ve ashabil kiram ve ila arvah cemîl enbiya ve mursalîn kudemâ şerâ'ihim ve ila arvah el-emmeti arba'a ve ila arvah meşâihina fi tarikatin nakşibendiyyetin aliyye khâsaten imam-ı tarikatı ve avsil halika Hâce Bahâuddin Muhammed ve Yusîl Bukhari Seyyidina Abdülhâlik ve Rızduvani Mevlâ Şeyh Şerafeddin Darsani Mevlâ Şeyh Abdullah Fâz Darsani Mevlâ Şeyh Muhammed Nazım Adil Hakkani وسائر ساداتنا والصديقين ومن نحن حضرة وزوار وسلم فضل ورفقائه Hacı Mustafa ve Rabbi cümlemiz geçmişler ruhlar için şahit şuhadaların için bu Peygamber Efendimiz'in sıktı Ebu Abdullah Hüseyin ve Rıfaka Kerbela şehitleri bu dünyadaki Müslümanların şehitleri cümlemiz geçmişler ruhlar için La Teala Fatiha.